Hi, everybody, and welcome into our studios here at WMBD for our debut of the CI Sideline Stories podcast. My name is Kurt Pegler here at WMBD. I'm the sports director, and our goal with this new app is to bring you some new programming, and we're glad that you're here with us on the WMBD Plus app. And we have some podcasts, and this one in particular, where we're going to be able to sink our teeth into some longer form interviews and tell you a little bit more about some of the stories from the sidelines, from the stands, from the press box. On a typical newscast, I get 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, so I don't have a whole lot of time to really sink my teeth into some stories. But in this format, we've got a little bit more time, so that's what we're going to do. And with today's podcast, we're going to focus a little bit on baseball, specifically on the Peoria Chiefs. They just wrapped up their season this past weekend, and their last homestand of the year, the Chiefs honored two big figures, gigantic figures in the history of the franchise. One, Ryne Sandberg, the former Cubs Hall of Fame baseball player, an iconic figure with the Cubs, who came to Peoria and was a manager for 2 years. We're going to talk about that. The Chiefs also honored Pete Van Aken, the man who helped bring minor league baseball to Peoria in the 1980s, and obviously his legacy continues to live on. And having said that, we're going to bring in his son, Rocky Van Aken. Rocky was the former Peoria Chiefs president and general manager. And let's first, Rocky, talk a little bit about the history of minor league baseball in Peoria. It's not anything new. We've had baseball semi-pro leagues for years and years and years. The 3I League in the 1950s was when the Peoria Chiefs were kind of born, but there was about a 25-year period from the end of the 3I League to the Midwest League coming to town when we actually had what we consider now minor league baseball. Your father, Pete, bought the Peoria Suns. They were already in town. They were a California Angels affiliate. Players like Wally Joyner and Devin White, who wound up having great pro careers, were part of that organization. How did your dad get into the baseball business? He was a restaurateur. He was in the blacktop business, right? How did he get into baseball?
Well, it's funny with that. You mentioned they were here for a year. They had moved here from Danville and didn't do very well. And several guys, Dick Lean and Phil Theobald, who had been, covering the Suns at the time when they were here, went to Dad, knowing he had baseball connections over the years, said, "Hey, Pete, we got to keep this team in Peoria. It's great for Peoria. So, why don't you buy it?" And, at first he's like, there's no way. Why would I want to do that? But the more he thought about it, and he was very always community-oriented, quality of life for Central Illinois and that type of thing. And that's kind of the angle he took. He said, well, you know what? It is great for Peoria and Central Illinois, so I'm going to do it. So he ended up buying the team, and they were the California Angels affiliate. Joe Madden was their first manager that he had. And a funny story there was, Joe came in and he said, "Hi, Pete, I'm Joe Madden. I'm your manager. I've never managed before." And Pete looked at him and said, "Hi, Joe, I'm Pete Van Aken. I've never owned a team before either, so we're going to have a great time."
And they were the Angels affiliate, the Suns were at the time. Then your dad changes the name. They become the Peoria Chiefs. And suddenly the Cubs are going to come and be affiliated with this team in Peoria through your dad's connection with iconic broadcaster Harry Carey. How did that whole thing play out?
Well, it just didn't make any sense for the California Angels to be here in Central Illinois when you've got the Cubs and the Cardinals and the White Sox. Is there a better affiliate for you that will help us draw? And through his connections with Harry and Dallas Green and that, they sat down and worked out a deal to get the Cubs to come to Peoria. So it was a great fit from the get-go for both the Cubs and the Chiefs.
And obviously, baseball becomes a thing in the 1980s here in Peoria. You're talking about Greg Maddux, Rafael Palmeiro, Joe Girardi, Mark Race. They all played here. You guys are breaking records at Mine Field, bringing in big attendance at that time. It became a thing, didn't it?
Absolutely. It was all about family fun at the ballpark. Yes, we wanted to win and Dad wanted to win, but it was more about seeing families and friends come out and have a great time at the ballpark. We used to stand at the gate and say, half the people leaving, 75% of the people leaving have no idea who won or lost, but if they had a good time, they're coming back.
And that's exactly what they did. They came back and they came
Absolutely.
back and they came back. And then in the 90s, when teams like South Bend came into the league and they had a brand new ballpark, you had all these teams that were coming in with new parks. People started saying, well, when is Peoria going to get a new
Right.
ballpark, right? And that's when you kind of came on board. You were the general manager at the time, and we're trying to think about moving the team from its location on Nebraska Avenue at Minot Field to downtown. Your dad's still obviously a big figure in that. How did that whole thing play out to where it's Dozer Park now? It was O'Brien Field back then. Take us through how that whole thing happened too.
Well, you're exactly right. Once we got back into baseball, because in the mid '80s, for health reasons, Dad sold the team, and for 4 or 5 years, again, it wasn't doing well. So people went to him and said, "Pete, hey, you got to buy this team back. It's got to stay in Peoria, and you're the guy to do it." So at that time, that's when we put the group of current investors together. There's about 40 current investors, pretty much all local people that wanted to see baseball in Peoria. That's where we bought the team back. And then we started to see, the Lansings and the Daytons and the West Michigans up in Grand Rapids, building these beautiful new ballparks. And, Dad, again, is like, why can't Peoria have that? Our fans deserve that as well. So that's when we started looking into and what would it take to get a new stadium? And it took a lot of work. Obviously the city didn't have a lot of money, and they said, hey, if you want to do it, that's fine, but you're going to have to find your own money to do it. And we did. We went out, thanks to Caterpillar, with some monetary and land donation, and in our investor group, we were able to put it together and pretty much fund the whole ballpark through the investor group.
And that takes us to this past week. Your father would have turned 100 years old on August the 31st, and the Peoria Chiefs decide, okay, it's the last home game of the year. We're going to call it Pete Van Auken Day. And moving forward, every final game of the season is going to be, home game of the season is going to be Pete Van Auken Day. That's kind of a cool thing for you and your family now, isn't it?
It is very cool, and it was very nice of them to do that. Jason was telling me, he kind of wanted to do something and kind of get back to the roots of Peoria Chiefs baseball, and then he realized that their final whole game was also Dad's birthday and his 100th birthday, and there's no other place that Dad would want to celebrate his 100th birthday than at the ballpark. So it was nice of them to do it. A lot of family came back. We had nieces and nephews from really all over the country. We had some cousins come over from Decatur for the night. There was about 40 of us that were at the game. So it was great to remember and celebrate Dad and what he did for baseball here in Peoria.
All right, so now you're downtown. We're up to about the year 2000 here. You've got the ballpark. The team is now playing its games in a beautiful new park. Bradley's playing its games there. Eventually, the IHSA is putting state tournament games there. It's obviously more than just a home to the Peoria Chiefs. That first year, everybody is crazy about the new ballpark. You have a team with Yadier Molina and Chris Duncan. You win the Midwest League Championship. Everything kind of fell into place, didn't it?
It certainly did. And people ask me about, what's your best time in your career. And that's probably it. That whole year took a lot of hard work to get it done, and then we see it open up, and we see great crowds, and then we have a team that, really played very, very well. And it's hard to do because you have players coming and going all year long, and it's out of your control. Your major league affiliate handles who your players are, but they continue to win and win and win, and we went into the playoffs, and we swept the first round, we swept the second round, we won a couple games, and then we lost a game, and so and then we were down 10-1, I think.
Right.
Going into the ninth inning.
In Lansing.
And I remember we started coming back, and I was standing next to Bruce Mano, who was the director of the minor leagues for the Cardinals at the time, and I started leaving and going down, and he goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to get Dad, make sure he's okay." And he goes, No, you got to stay right here. We're playing well. You got to stay right here." So I stood right there, and we ended up coming back and winning the whole thing. So, it was just a great year.
All right, so let's fast forward then 5 years from there, 6 years from there, end of the 2006 season. From year to year, you really never know who your manager is going to be, right? The parent club is the one that is making those decisions. Right. You guys are controlling the promotions and the Dizzy Bat race and the Jimmy Buffett night, that kind of stuff. The parent club is putting the players on the field and assigning a manager. A lot of that happened in the winter meetings, right? That's about the time in December when you would find out when you get a manager. December 2006 comes around. Everybody in the Midwest League kind of already knows who their manager is. The Peoria Chiefs still don't have a manager.
Right. And, you talk about what we control and we don't. And we always used to say the two things that affect our attendance probably the most is your team and the weather. You have no control over. So if you have a bad team, if you have bad weather, there's nothing you can do about it. So our job was to put butts in seats, provide the entertainment. So when they come down, again, they have a great time. They're going to come back no matter what. But yeah, it's we didn't have a manager. We just had Jody Davis as a manager, and that we're thinking you can't have a better manager than Jody Davis. Another Cub fan favorite that the Cub fans love. And so I just gotten down to the winter meetings, and I'm sitting there, and my phone rings, and it's Oneri Fleta from the Cubs, and he said, "Hey, we got a manager for you." I said, "Oh, great. Who is it?" And he said, "Ryan Sandberg." And I said, "Yeah, right, Oneri. Okay, who is it?" And he goes, "No, really, Ryan Sandberg." And I about fell out of my chair, and I didn't know what to say. You just had Jody Davis, and now you got Ryan Sandberg, future Hall of Famer, and things just went crazy from there.
Well, yeah. Now, immediately, are your phones ringing? Are fans interested in season tickets because of the Sandberg announcement?
As soon as we announced it, tickets went crazy. People wanting season tickets, people looking for group tickets. At that time, we probably didn't have individual game tickets on sale yet. So we probably moved that process up a month because we knew we would start selling tickets right away. And, we had a great attendance year that year just because of Ryan Sandberg.
You maybe had a little conversation with him through your father, but you really didn't know Ryan Sandberg, right, until maybe spring training of that year?
Right. I hardly knew him. I might have met him somewhere, when I was with my father somewhere. But, yeah, we went out to spring training that year, my dad and I, and basically to meet Ryan and welcome him to Peoria. And we went to his house. He was living out there at the time and had dinner. He invited us to dinner, and he goes, come look at he called it his Hall of Fame room or his MVP room. And he had all his awards and jerseys and everything in his room. And it was just, we're just all in awe of, and still hard to believe you got Ryan Sandberg that's going to come to Peoria and be your manager.
And he shows up on time. He's there at spring training. He's doing his thing. And then he comes to Peoria. And it's a love affair literally from the first day he was here, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, he attacked this job like he attacked his playing career. As soon as he walked in that ballpark, it was game face. And, yes, he wanted to win games, but he was more about making sure his players got better every day and to move up through the system. And I remember the first team meeting, and I was down in the locker room, and one thing he said was, "Hey, when I was your age, sitting there in Class A ball, I wasn't the best one in the room. I just worked harder than everybody else." And, I've always remembered that, and I think the guys took that to heart as well.
It's funny because, and I've shared this with you too, I thought when I first heard that Ryan Sandberg was coming to Peoria, I said, there's no way a Hall of Fame guy is going to ride the buses, is going to sign autographs, is going to talk to the media. He totally proved me wrong. He embraced being on the buses, throwing batting practice, carrying equipment to the bus. He went back to school with these guys and loved it, didn't he?
Absolutely. He did anything that a minor league manager would do at the Class A level and did it without complaining, any of that. And, he would help pull tarp if we would have asked him to.
All right, we are talking with Rocky Van Aken about the Peoria Chiefs and about Ryan Sandberg, who lost his battle with cancer in July, but he had two incredible seasons as manager of the Peoria Chiefs, and we're going to continue talking about that in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Rocky Van Aken about the great Ryan Sandberg as our CI Sideline Stories continues. Stay tuned. and welcome back to our CI Sideline Stories. We are chatting with Rocky Vanaken, the former president and general manager of the Peoria Chiefs, about Ryan Sandberg, who passed away in July. Ryan comes to town, and as we mentioned, he really embraces Peoria. His wife embraced Peoria. It would have been easy for her to come once a month. It would have been easy for Ryan to kind of big-time people. He never did, right? He signed autographs and autographs. The joke was, if you didn't have an autograph from Ryan Sandberg, you didn't try, right? Because he sat there and signed autographs for hours every homestand, and he did it on the road, too.
Absolutely. You know, when we opened the gate, it was a mad dash for the first base dugout because he would stand there 20, 30 minutes before every game and sign autographs. And some of the stuff I've seen him sign, you know, a toilet seat, martini glasses, you know, just all kinds of things people would want him to sign. And I don't think there was a thing that we asked Ryan to do, whether it be in the community or for nonprofits, this or that he didn't do. As long as he had the time, he was there to do it. And the thing about Ryan, I think he got more mail on a daily basis than we did as a business. I mean, he got stacks and stacks of fan mail every day. And I would take it down and I'd put it when he was on the road, and I'd put it on his desk. You know, and he'd come back to a mountain of mail. And he would go through it, and some he would sign, some he would not sign. He said, I could always pretty much tell when it was for a kid or someone like that, or if it was someone looking to make a quick buck, you know, where he was going to see it on eBay the next day. But he answered as many of them as he could.
He wanted to be a big league manager. He knew this was the route to do it. He was going to have to start in low Class A. I mean, he didn't have any managerial experience, right? He may have helped out in spring training here and there for the Cubs, so he had to learn the ropes of being a manager. 3.5 hour, 4 hour games, then you're filing reports. You're in the office till midnight, right? At what point did you see this guy is going to be a manager and he's going to make it to the big leagues? Was it right away? Did it take a little while for the light bulb to go off?
I think pretty much from the get-go, just the way he was so serious about it, and the way he did it, went about his daily routine and making sure he was doing the right things, and you know, making sure his players were developing. And, you know, I think his dream was to be manager of the Chicago Cubs. You know, that's where he wanted to get to. And, you know, when he asked him, you know, I want to be a manager, they said, well, we got a spot for you, but it's a Class A ball in Peoria. And, you know, I think he thought that would be a good fit for him, a good starting spot for him. And, you know, he took it very seriously.
His second year with the team was amazing. The first year was good. He had a decent year, but the second year too, you started getting people from 200-300 miles away that wanted. I guess if they missed out on the 2007 season, in 2008, you started seeing people from Des Moines and from the suburbs and from Indianapolis. They all came to town, not necessarily to see the first baseman or the shortstop or the center fielder, right? They wanted to see Ryan Sandberg.
Absolutely. I think they knew it was a good opportunity to get an autograph from Ryan because you weren't going to get it at the Major League ballpark. So, you know, if you came to Peoria or somewhere where the Chiefs were playing, you might have a good opportunity to get his autograph. But, you know, fans loved Ryan. They just loved seeing him. You know, the sections over there on third base would fill up quicker than any because, you know, he went out and coached third base, and that people wanted to be close to him and watch him.
And people lined up to get those autographs. The gates would open at 6, right, for a 7 o'clock game, and they would run down to the dugout to get a glimpse of him and get an autograph.
You better not get in their way because you're going to get trampled.
All right, a couple of things in this scenario in his second year. 2 historic things happened in the same week. He goes to Cooperstown for the Hall of Fame ceremony, so he's away from the team. There's a series in Dayton, and there's a gigantic brawl. It makes national headlines. There's a brawl on the field. Carmelo Martinez was the interim manager at the time. Things got heated, and all of a sudden there's a brawl, right? And Ryan's away from the team. He really, I think, after it was over, regretted not being around his team for that, didn't he?
Oh, there's no question, because you know he always said, you know, would that have really happened if I had been there? And unfortunately, during that, a fan got hurt. One of our players, you know, just in the excitement of all, picked up the ball and he threw it, and it hit a fan in the face, and there was issues there, unfortunately. But yeah, he was always I don't know if that really would have happened if I was there. So that bothered him a lot.
And then within the same week, right, 7 days later, there's this Road to Wrigley game. The Cubs say, take us through this whole thing. How did you get the Cubs to agree to have the Peoria Chiefs play a Class A baseball game at Wrigley Field?
You know, I don't know. It was just kind of in passing. I mentioned Oneri Fleta one night when he was at the ballpark. I said, wouldn't it be fun to watch these guys play up at Wrigley, give the fans up in the Chicago area a look at minor league ball? And, you know, I'm thinking, hey, if we draw 10,000 people, it'd be a lot of fun to do. And, you know, he just kind of shrugged it off. And, you know, a couple of months later, Crane Kenny called me and he said, hey, I heard you talk to Oneri about playing a game up in Chicago at Wrigley. And I said, yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be great for our players to have an opportunity to play at Wrigley Field and, you know, feel what it's like and that. And he goes, you know, I do too. Let's talk about this. So we talked about it. And again, we're thinking 10,000 people coming to a game, and we put everything together and the logistics together, and ticket sales just went crazy. I mean, we had over 33,000 people. You know, everything, tickets were minor league prices. They lowered the concession prices for the fans. We did all our stuff on the field. We had the chicken. We had the superstars. You know,
That's right. That's right.
Our staff is running around like we do at our own ballpark.
Yeah.
And music's playing all the time. And it was just a great, fun environment for the fans of Chicago.
You told me a story that he agreed to do a pregame radio interview like an hour before the game, but it was with a Chicago radio station. They were outside the park, like 2 blocks away from the park, and you had to get him from inside the stadium, outside the stadium, with fans waiting to get in, right?
Right. It was actually a local station that went up to kind of cover the game, and it was at Goose Island, which is just down the street from Wrigley. And you know, I asked Ryan to do it, and again, he if he could do it, he was going to do it. And I remember going out, they were just finishing up batting practice. I said, Ryan, we got to get to this radio interview. And I've talked to the staff here, and they can take us out a side door. We can kind of sneak down an alley and do that, or we can go out the front door. And Ryan looked at me and goes, we're going right out the front gate. And I remember we walked out, and we were walking pretty fast, but the look of people, I mean, they were looking and kind of doing double takes. And Ryan was in his full uniform at the time, and people were pointing, and there goes Ryan, there goes Ryan. And, you know, people, they caught up to us, and, you know, Ryan would walk and sign autographs for people. He went in and did his interview, came back out, and again, walked right down the street, right back in the front gate, and he went down to the field.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great memories, 2007, 2008. Obviously, we get word in July that Rhino's battle with cancer is over. He dies. What was your reaction? I know you stayed in touch with his family a little bit. You used to text him back and forth. That was just heartbreaking news because he was cancer-free earlier in the year, right? And all of a sudden he's in trouble. A couple of weeks before his death, people started wearing his jerseys to the ballpark because we knew that his health was failing.
Right. I think everybody thought, you know, hey, he had beat cancer because he'd come out and you know, he'd gone through all those treatments, and he came out and said he was in remission and all that. And then a short while later, he came out and said, hey, it's back a little bit, but I'm going to start taking treatment again. Everything should be okay. And then, you know, shortly before he passed, he sent out a message to the fans. And with that message, you thought, uh-oh, something's not right here. And then you see video of former players, Rick Sutcliffe and Andre Dawson, those guys wearing his jersey when they're at Wrigley, and you're thinking, oh, something's not right here. And then, unfortunately, shortly after that, he passed and lost his battle with cancer.
It was a memorable funeral service for him. I know it was broadcast and a lot of people saw it. And you've just now recently had a chance to talk to Margaret, his wife. How did that conversation go? Can you share with us some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. My sister and I were invited to the service. Unfortunately, I was out of town, and there was just no way for me to get back and logistically make it work, so I was unable to attend, but she attended. And Sunday, she was over at Margaret's house with them, having dinner, and just they were recapping and recanting old Chief stories and this and that, and they couldn't remember something, so they called me, and it was fun to talk to Margaret. You know, she's doing great as best she can, coping with things and getting along. But you know, what a guy, and great memories from to me, one of the greatest guys I've ever met.
Yeah. And just down to earth. You would have never known that that guy was a Hall of Famer by the way he handled himself here, right? He was just like your next door neighbor in Peoria.
Absolutely, and that's a good story too, where he lived and how he got to live there. But when he first came down, normally we put our managers in an apartment complex that the players were in and this and that. And once Ryan was announced, and I told my dad, I said, "Hey, we can't put Ryan in an apartment." And I said, maybe we can find a house to rent for him or something, this or that. And it's kind of looking around, and Don Feitz, the former CEO of CAT, is one of our investors. And I called Don and I said, I knew CAT had some houses around that they put people in when they were visiting. And I asked, I said, do you have a house? Would CAT have a house that we can put Ryan in? And he said, no, not that I know of, but I just bought the house next door to me, and I bought it for my daughter. She was going to move back from Ohio, but she decided not to move back. I'll put Ryan in that house. It's fully furnished. I'll share my maid with him, and everything will be great. So he did that, and it was obviously a great location here in Peoria, and so good situation for that. And then to get Ryan back for the second year, not thinking we were going to have him back. I called Don and I said, "Hey, is your house still available? Ryan's coming back." And he goes, "Is he really?" He goes, "Oh, unfortunately, I don't. Joanne Glasser, the president of Bradley, is there." And I said, "Oh, I got to find a house for Ryan." And we started talking. He goes, "You know what? She's been here a while. It's about time she finds a place of her own. So I'm going to kick her out and tell Ryan he can stay here for the summer again."
Oh, that's great. That is really, really great. And we'll close with that wonderful story. Rocky, thanks for sharing all of these great memories. I know it was bittersweet with Ryan's death, but you've got so many great memories, and thank you for sharing them with us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for all you've done for baseball in Peoria.
I appreciate it. All right, Rocky Vanaken, the former president and general manager with the Peoria Chiefs. There had been two Peoria-born players to ever play for the Peoria Chiefs. One was Joe Girardi, who played in the 1980s for this team, and the other one just wrapped up his first full season playing professional baseball with the Peoria Chiefs. And we'll hear from him when our CI Sideline Stories continues in a moment. And welcome back to our premiere edition of CI Sideline Stories. My name again is Kurt Pegler, and we're glad that you're with us here on the brand new WMBD Plus app. We're going to conclude our time with the Peoria Chiefs today by talking to Mason Burns. He's a Normal Community High School graduate who pitched as the closer for the Peoria Chiefs. Cardinals drafted him last year. He started this season in Palm Beach, then got a promotion in the middle of the year to come to Peoria, and he quickly became the closer. He is the second Peoria-born player to ever play for the Peoria Chiefs. Born here in Peoria, raised in the Twin Cities, and he just completed his first full season of minor league baseball. And we talked to him about several things, about what he learned, about his role as the closer, what he does in the offseason. And here's that interview now with Mason Burns.
I grew up playing in and around Central Illinois. I grew up coming to Dozer Park sometimes, so being early in my career and having support, so if I do fail and I do struggle, that I have a good support system to fall back on here in Central Illinois. It's really helpful.
Yeah, I've seen Ryan Short at a game before. I've seen some people wearing Normal Community shirts and hats. I mean,
Yep.
it must be not. I mean, as a minor league player, you don't really get that. You've got a chance to do that here.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to a lot of guys. They're from Latin America or California or East Coast states. But being here and being a Central Illinois kid. I get some slack, but it's really nice, and I'm really grateful that I get to play here.
What have you learned? A year ago, you were drafted, and it's been probably a whirlwind 12 months, right? What have you learned in the last 12 months about baseball? It's a business, and it's a little bit different than growing up playing junior ball and high school ball and all that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you learn as much off the field as you do on the field. You learn, it's a long season. We play 132 games, so you learn how to take care of your body. You learn how to, show up and play every day. That's a big part of it. Availability is the best ability. And along with just learning how to pitch at the professional level. Location stuff matters more than it does in college, and it matters more each level you go up. So just learning how to, recover is a big part of it.
You've noticed that there are pitches that maybe you got away with 2 years ago that you can't trying to slide back to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff I got away with in high school didn't fly in college. Stuff I got away with in college doesn't fly in low A. Stuff I got away with in low A doesn't fly here. So, it's a learning. The more you go up, the more you got to learn, the better you got to get. So.
Tell me about the mentality of being the closer. You're in these high leverage situations now. It looks like you've kind of been slotted as the late inning guy. You like that, don't you?
I do, yeah. That's what I did in college. My junior and senior year, I'm comfortable there, believe it or not. I like being in those situations. Late in game, one run, you need a big out. Like, I love being in that situation. So just getting in those situations and having success and getting comfortable and confident is a big part of it.
But preparing for that is different. A starter knows every 4 or 5 days he's going to pitch. You never really know when you're going to be ready. You have to be ready all the time. There's a mentality for that and getting yourself ready every day for that?
Yeah, there's a mentality where it's just like, it doesn't matter. Like, if your body hurts, it doesn't matter. If you're not quite ready yet, it doesn't matter. When, the manager comes out and pulls the other pitcher and you're in the game, nothing matters. What matters is you got to get outs, you got to get the guy out in front of you, and you got to, finish the game for your team so you can get a win.
How long does it take you to get ready? I mean, it's the 7th inning. You know that it's a one-run game. You might get your number called. Your juices are probably flowing. How long before you're ready to go?
No, I got a routine. Like, you start to read the game, like you said. In 6th, 7th inning, I'll start to lightly stretch. About the 8th inning, you realize, okay, I'm probably going in here, and then you start to really get ready, and then, it's game time in the 9th inning.
Yeah, and then the heart's going on the walk out from the bullpen right to the mound.
I mean, yes and no. Like, you're excited, but I've been there before. It is, it's just another game. It's just another out. You can't make it bigger than it is. You just got to be where your feet are, get the guy out in front of you, and that's really all that matters.
It's a business, but this is fun, isn't it? You're still playing a game that you love, but it's a grind, and yet it's still fun. How is that for guys like you?
It is a business. I've had some great friends get released. I've seen people get traded. Moving up and down within the organization. It's definitely a business part to it, but you learn and you make great relationships with the guys. You're in and around them every day. 6 days a week I'm around these guys. I travel with them. I live in hotels with them. I practice with them every day. So you make a lot of great friends.
And it's still, the goal is to still get to the big leagues.
Absolutely.
And you feel like you've taken a good step this year, would you say? I mean, you're promoted, and you're on the right track.
Yeah, I've definitely had a good first year. There's things I've done well, there's things I've done wrong, obviously. So I'm looking forward to going into the offseason strong, preparing a lot in the offseason for next season. For my second pro season, hopefully I can make some more noise within the organization and get promoted more.
Yeah, what does the offseason look like for you? Do you go to a warm weather place? Do you stay home and work out here? What does that look like in the offseason?
I'll visit my family in Florida, visit my parents in Florida some, but most of my time spent in Bloomington, training at Case Academy with Josh Cowton. He's done wonders for my career. There are a bunch of pro guys that go back and train there. It's a great environment, junior high through even pro. So I train in Bloomington, Case Academy. Can't say enough good things.
That's good. And it will be nice for those guys to see you too. I'm sure when you're a walking testimony to the fact that guys from Central Illinois, you don't have to be from Florida, you don't have to be from California or Texas.
Yep.
You can be from Bloomington Normal and do this, right?
Yeah. There's a great pocket here in Central Illinois. I've always said that. A lot of great baseball here. But yeah, I was a swimmer in high school, and I didn't really, I wasn't really the best at baseball. It kind of just clicked one summer. But going from a 130-pound swimmer as a sophomore to where I am now, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, anybody can do it if you put the work in.
How about that? A former high school swimmer, now is a professional baseball player. Mason Burns, a Normal community grad, born in Peoria and played this summer for the Peoria Chiefs. That is very rare. Only happened one other time, and that was with Joe Girardi in the middle 1980s. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed our first edition of CI Sideline Stories. We'll be back next week with more Sideline Stories for you as we try to dive a little bit deeper into some of the stories here in Central Illinois. And we'll see you next time here on CI Sideline Stories.